technology has taken even over that business. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
What, everything used to be done by, equipment operators using their eyes. Everything is satellite, right down to the bulldozers. It's unbelievable.
A lot of the paving companies sold out, like Palmer Paving, a bunch of them. They got
Yeah.
stupid money,
No, but
Yeah,
not
they
that.
did. Yeah.
stupid,
live.
hundreds of millions.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Town of Somers Board of Finance, regular meeting, October 25th, 2022. We have Bill Salka, Bruce Devlin, Ralph Williams, Kathy Devlin, and Mike Parker present, along with Brian Wessinger, who's going to try to keep us all on track here. We have a Board of Education update. Dr. Gagliarducci, would you like to step up? And
You're going to step up?
yeah, if you'd
Yeah.
like.
Either seat.
Either seat.
Yes.
So I'm here to answer any questions, but to let you know that budget's okay so far.
Yeah.
Knock on wood. We do have a couple of it seems like 20 years ago or 25 years ago, I was saying the same thing I'm saying tonight. So we have a couple unexpected outside placements, but we think we can handle those right now. If we couldn't, we would be talking to you, but as of today, we think we're okay. There's nothing major right now that we see on the horizon that would put us in any kind of danger, but obviously I would let you know right away if that was the case. The boiler project at the high school is moving along very slowly. Lots of issues with the logistics and all of the supply chain, getting the right parts. Some stuff did arrive a few weeks ago. Some of the parts were correct. Some of the parts were not correct. We entered into a cold spell about a week and a half ago, and we were getting complaints from some of the staff because we didn't have any heat in the morning. But then now we have one boiler working, and so that seems at this point to be sufficient. We ran into some change orders, which we didn't anticipate, but we're not talking a gigantic amount of money, maybe $5,000–6,000 worth of change orders, which I'm not sure was that significant. So when looking at those, we'll have the Board of Ed approve those at their next meeting. In terms of the full bond, Steffi and I will be meeting next week. We're preparing a presentation to the board. So 82%, roughly 82 to 85% of the money has been spent. And we're going to prioritize some projects that we think need to be done. The company that was contracted to do the study on the HVA system has started their work finally. I think they're about a week to 2 weeks into their study. Stephanie's going to be calling them for some updates to see what's going on. Took a while. By the time, it's my understanding, by the time the contracts got thrown back and forth between, lawyers, it finally got things going and got it going. So probably behind schedule from where we want it to be. I don't know enough about the project, but I'm anticipating that we're probably a month or two behind where we want it to be. So other than that, I'm not sure if there's anything else, unless you have any questions for me.
No, I'm good.
Are you guys
Anybody
back in the
else?
saddle with the superintendent search?
Oh, superintendent search? The answer is yes, we are. Part of me coming on board was that the board wanted me to do the search, so we are in that process. We were lucky enough, we do finally have a candidate list, so we're looking at some resumes and probably be doing some initial interviews pretty soon.
Good. Ralph, do you have anything?
No.
Kathy?
No.
Yeah. As they say in the movies, Dr. Gagliucci, you're free to go.
I'm free to go. Hasta la vista. Okay. Yeah, so we're going to start the budget process. Stephanie and I have already started it. Principals are already starting to submit things. I just want to let you know, we are taking a look at some of our staffing issues, and I say that in that during the pandemic and with some of the federal funds, the district went out and hired some additional staff tutors. The question we're asking ourselves is, do we want, that money is running out. So the question is, are we going to absorb those, or are we going to look in another direction? And that's the question that we'll be working and talking to the principals about. We did bring on one new position last year, which seems to have been money well spent. It's called a STEM coach. STEM standing for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. The gentleman works with grades 7 through 12 teachers. Been very well received by the staff. He's got staff members contacting him on a daily basis, asking for help, asking for lessons, demonstration lessons, getting some. So we're hoping that that's going to work in the right direction. Our goal is maybe to add another one next year if we can afford it. The thing that I would like to know eventually is, so in the old days, I would prepare these very thick books and make 7 copies, and they would come down to the Board of Finance, and then I would come down, and the 7 copies were all up on the counter and never had been looked at. I know that's not the case anymore, but it would be good for me at least to get a sense of some kind of guideline, percentage guideline, and when you think you could get that, the sooner to me the better. So at least I can get an idea what's reality, where I'd have to make changes, where I'd have to make my priorities in order to prepare the budget. My guess is, going back to Bruce's question, is I'm the one who's going to be making the budget. If we were to select someone, the earliest that person would be here would probably be April 1st. So I'm the budget guy. So
So much for Florida.
pardon?
So much for Florida.
Yeah, so much for Florida. Alrighty, we just canceled our condo, so that's into that. But yeah, so So any kind of indication that you could give us, we'd appreciate that. And I'm sure the Board of Selectmen feel the same way. It just makes it a little bit easier if we have some kind of a target to look at.
We'll discuss that, and we'll get you some advice, all right? Is that fair?
Absolutely.
Fair. Good.
Thanks a lot, everybody.
Good
Thanks,
seeing
Bob.
you.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Selectmen update. Keeney?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and the board. Got a couple of items I wanted to mention. First is the community center. As you know, a household survey was sent out over 4 weeks ago to over 4,000 households in town. We received about around 700 responses, or 18%, which is a pretty good response rate. Usually it's somewhere in the 10 to 12% area. The results have not yet been finalized, so that we're really not prepared to talk about that, but just to let you know that it's been accomplished, and we got a great response, and we're looking forward to moving ahead with the information that we gleaned from the survey. Also, a related subject, on the 18th of October, I attended went with the Town Hall Community Center Committee, made up of about 7 people. We visited Wyndham Community Center.
Oh.
Actually, it was highly recommended by people that have been there recently. It just opened in April of this year. And in fact, Congressman Courtney encouraged me to go down there and take a look at it. and he could be an important person in the future with regards to financial assistance with regards to the town's needs related to that center, to our center. So we spent about 2 hours on site. We spoke with Jim Rivers, who's the town manager, an outstanding individual, very sharp, as well as the deputy recreation director. I can't remember what his name was, but
I want to say Joe, but it doesn't sound right.
he didn't give me a card. But he was also very energetic, very positive about the center. And they just have a lot of great things going on there, and they also have many lessons learned as to sort of the do's and don'ts and what are some of the valuable things they learned in the process. So I think they'll be helpful to us in the future. We do plan on visiting other centers, possibly Long Meadow, I think might be the next. We're looking, of course, for community centers that are equivalent size. Most of them are larger than Summers, but at least it can give us some kind of perspective on what were their priorities and what they were able to accomplish and what they couldn't accomplish, and what they wish they had been able to do. The next item I want to mention is the Summersville Mill site. This is something Mr. Williams would be interested in for sure. Of course, the town has been working with a developer for over 4 years now.
Yeah.
It started out, it was called KCG 2018. In 2019, I think KCG kind of lost interest in it, and one of their members, though, was interested in continuing with the project, so they came back calling it SCG. It was in 2019. We've been talking to them since. Last meeting we had with them was about 6 months ago, and it was kind of a lukewarm meeting. I mean, a little bit of give and take, but there wasn't a lot of enthusiasm, and we haven't heard from them since. Which I'm not sure what that indicates, but we just haven't heard from them. It turns out yesterday I was contacted by a company in Boston that has a great reputation and lots of good experience, and they expressed interest in taking a look at the site and wondering whether the town might be interested in any kind of proposal from them if they believe it's in their best interest. So I'm going to meet with them later in the week with Mike Marinaccio and speak with them at the site and answer any questions they have and see what level of interest they have. Of course, one of the big problems I think we had with the committee that Ralph and I served on was the lack of a lot of interest in pursuing economic development there. It just, I think we only had 2 companies that were interested, and really only one of them was.
Yes, and one of them was only going to build on the other side of the stream there too. As I
North
recall.
side.
The guy wanted to just have townhouses or something.
Oh,
like
yeah,
that.
you wanted to put recreation on the other side of the.
Yeah, well, the plan right now is I think the primary facility is going to be on the north side.
Good.
Some
Okay.
60
That's
units. And
That preserved
that's
it.
sort of what we're looking at. One of the big questions is what's the mix of those units, and is it the kind of mix that Summers needs? For instance, what's the mix with regards to market rate, affordable housing, low-income housing, and what do they need for the developer needs for financing to be competitive?
I do remember the initial developer that came in, one of their project reps.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
He was talking about affordable, not low income, and he was saying that it would have to leave something on the order of 70% of the units there. He also said affordable would work out to be something on the order of 70 income of no higher than 75 or 80% of the county's median income, which at that point would have worked out about 45 to 50,000.
Yeah, I think affordable is somewhere between 40 and 60,000.
Yeah. So which did not strike me as being completely at a clash with the town of Summers.
Low income is 30,000.
Yeah. No, they weren't. He wasn't even talking about low income at that point.
Yeah, what's interesting, of course, is the developer needs to compete for
Yeah.
this project.
Yep.
And in order to compete, I think the more affordable they have, the more interest the
Yeah.
state has in supporting it. So that, and I also believe that once you sign on a developer, they can pretty much do whatever they want when it comes to the mix. It's out of your control.
What about that, remember that Mark that was doing a business in Windsor Locks? He was.
Yeah,
was
very
he-
impressive. Yeah, he was a financial person that was doing it.
Oh, I was very impressed by him. Maybe he could help us if that guy doesn't come down. I don't
Maybe,
know.
yeah. That's pretty much all I have. I do have some additional comments on the appropriations issue when that comes up, so
Okay,
I'll just stay here if that's okay.
you can
Okay.
stay right there. You have anything for us, Brian?
So I gave everybody finance office quarterly report for the first quarter. This was already submitted to the selectmen as well. Some highlights of every department that we have our hands on, and every board and commission that we deal with as well. One key note, so this was as of September 30th. One key note on the back of page 1 says no general fund state aid had been received as of 9/30. That still stands true. As of 10/25, there's still been no state aid received. We received an email from OPM yesterday, I think it was. They are planning to send out pilot funds to towns starting in early November, is how they stated it. My guess is it'll be after the election. They put into law that now the pilot funds can be distributed as late as May of the fiscal year. So they're doing it in November this year because at the time that they had passed that law, many towns, including Summers, had already projected out their cash flow for the year, and so they're holding true for this year. But my guess is with fiscal 24, we won't see that chunk of money until the third or fourth quarter of the fiscal year.
24?
The other note is on the very last page, the last bullet point. We created an internal committee within finance made up of Lisa Madden, the tax collector, Karen Neal, the assistant assessor, and Danielle Urban, the associate accountant, to begin looking at our current revenue collection system townwide and coming up with ways on how to modernize and centralize revenue collection, how to offer more online offerings for residents, even down to things like being able to register your dog online rather than having to stand in line at the town clerk. So they have begun that work. They've been meeting every couple of weeks and then sending me any updates that they may have along the way. This is kind of one of my visions of how I think we need to move into 21st century revenue collection. Unfortunately, with the way everything's going, the less cash and stuff you can collect, the better. The more you can do online, you actually see higher collection rates with people online now. And I don't know if you've been to any sporting events in the last 2 years, but a lot of sporting events aren't even accepting cash anymore. Hartford Yard Goats, for example, are a completely cashless venue. So not to say that the town of Summers will ever become a completely cashless venue, but the less you can, the more internal control you have over the dollars that you collect, because there's no more cash changing hands. So we're looking at everything that we're currently doing and how we can modernize it.
One question: online tax payments. I think I only availed myself of it once, and I was a little steamed when I did. I said, "Oh, I'm paying my and I'm paying what additional charge?" You know.
So we don't collect that additional charge. That's set by the merchant. We have no control over that.
It's just sort of like to cover the card fee or whatever.
So the only in the state of Connecticut, the only thing that a merchant fee can be charged for is something like a tax. So if you ever paid your water, or if you were on sewer, like people in Somersville, if you wanted to pay your bill online, you would not pay a fee. It's against the law. You can't charge it on any utility. You cannot charge the fee on any like systems. So, for example, you register for a program. You can't charge a fee. We have to absorb that fee. So in-person charges, we don't charge a fee to any of the residents. They come in, they pay their taxes in person, there's no fee. It's only online because the merchant charges it as that transaction cost. They set the rate, they do all of that. It's just like you go to the gas station, so they're not allowed to give you, they're not allowed to say they're charging you more for using your credit card, so
But
they give you a
built it
cash
in, they built it
discount.
into the price.
They
yeah.
build it into the price, and they give you a cash discount if you use cash instead. Is how they get around charging the fee.
Looks to me like Danielle will be getting more and more responsibility as the year goes on. Because,
Absolutely.
okay, second quarter goes into police and fire billing.
Yep. So Danielle has been absolutely wonderful since coming on in January. She has taken a lot off of my plate as far as what I do on a daily basis, allowing me to take over more of what happens across the hall on a daily basis. So she's completely taking over payroll, payables. She contacts all the vendors, handles
Good.
everything. Quarterly state and federal reporting she does. She has taken over all the bank reconciliations. And like I said, in this quarter that we're in right now, she's been learning how to handle the police and fire billing, how we charge them. She worked with the auditors while they were here last week. And then she's going to start assisting in the budget preparation and just handling the W-2s at tax time and the 1099s and everything of that nature as well. So she has been fantastic.
Yeah. She's got a great attitude.
Yeah.
Really fun to work with.
Very good. Very good.
Any questions?
There's a meeting schedule. I saw that you
Yep.
passed it around. I don't have my copy, but
There you go. Have my copy, sir.
thank you, sir. You're very kind. Does everybody here have the meeting schedule in front of them?
I already plugged it in my phone, but I don't have the paper copy of it.
Okay.
It
Is
should
there
be
any,
in the package.
Oh, it is?
It
Okay.
should have been.
It's not.
It's not.
No.
I'll borrow his. Thank you.
Unless it's on this.
Well, it's basically the fourth Tuesday, with the exception of all.
With the exception of December,
Right.
because it was the day after Christmas. I figured nobody was going to meet
Right,
that day,
right.
so I moved it a week back.
Yeah.
And August, there's no meeting scheduled
Right.
historically, unless you wanted to add one.
Right.
That's your guys' call.
I have a motion to adopt the schedule unless there's some comment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. You got it. All right, we're now at the appropriations matter for the Stafford Medic. Did you want to address that, Tim? Or?
I would if I could, just first of all, Brian can give the details on specifically what's being requested here in regards to the amount. I think it's
$62,522.75.
And Board of Selectmen at our meeting last Thursday approved a 2-to-1 vote, moving ahead with the agreement with Stafford to, again, what we're proposing is to place an ALS person in Stafford, physically in Stafford, to respond to Stafford calls for 40 hours a week. And that the agreement that we've been working on now with the town for about 3 months and have gotten really no pushback or further questions from them. They've gone through their Board of Selectmen and now it's before their Board of Finance. The agreement would fund about $150,000 over a year's time. And that agreement would, of course, it's a monthly agreement, $12,500 a month, and it would be subject to a 7% increase 1st of July of next year. for the services, which we believe are pretty much all encompassing for that position. It includes all the wear and tear on vehicles, fuel. I think even might even have some building expenses added to that. Is that Brian? Did you do that or not?
Building expenses, no.
No. Okay. Well, there were obviously some fixed costs that we didn't think were necessarily appropriate because the buildings can be there one way or another.
And outside of those 40 hours, any of those calls will be responded to from here?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the plan. But the fact is the 40 hours are scheduled between, I think, 10 o'clock in the morning and 7 o'clock at night. 11 to 7.
Yeah.
That's something like that,
Yeah.
where most of the calls come in.
Okay.
And that as far as this appropriation tonight goes, we technically don't need an appropriation to sign the agreement and could try to do it with current staffing. However, a couple things to remember. Number one, it's a fully paid for position. The demand for the ALS, BLS services has increased an average of 15% a year over the past 3 years. We have not had any personnel increases related to that. So you get that's a 45% increase in demand for services with no increase in personnel on that. And the thinking, we of course thought about this well in advance, was that if we were to do something for Stafford, it would be the time to hire an additional person that we could relegate to Stafford and then have them pay for the full load of expenses related to that individual and the services being provided.
So would this appropriation be, how should we say, fronting money with the anticipation of that would be covered by the Stafford payments?
No, it would just be, it would just, Brian can answer that, but I think it would authorize the receipt of the payments and where the monies would go when it came into the town.
We haven't seen the costing report yet, though. When is that going to come out?
The costing report, this is the one that we've been working on for the last 3 weeks. It's
Because I think that would be helpful to have before there's any talk about appropriations.
well, I think Brian can talk about the costing report for this position because that's been thoroughly reviewed.
Well, I
And
think we'd
agreed
like
to.
to, I
There's
think
no-
we'd like to
there's
have
no
it in
dispute.
final form if we could have
Right.
that. When do you think you could have that, Brian?
In my opinion, it's ready now. It just hasn't been sat down and discussed with anyone yet. Mike has reviewed it, and outside of myself and Mike, we're the only two that have looked at it and reviewed it. I think I finished it Thursday. So I mean, it's as final as it's going to get at this point. I don't know what else could be put into it, but it has not been sent out to anyone yet, including the Board of Selectmen.
I mean, from my perspective, I'd want to see how much we were losing to begin with before we start adding on an additional loss leader to the picture. I mean, I think
This
I
is
watched
not a lost leader.
I watched Bill's.
It's
I watched the Board of Selectmen meeting last week, and I think Bill had some very good points. And I think if we can try working with the existing staff first, and if it doesn't work, then hire somebody. I don't know why we would jump the gun before we know it's a need, because to me, we're not changing anything. We have the same. We're already servicing Stafford. So what is changing that would require?
What's changing is that the volume is increasing every year.
I don't know, but
And
Bill has a
just
pretty
think of
good
your own
handle.
situation. You've got work to do. You've got a certain amount of work to do, and the demands of that work increase every year 15%, and that's got to. It's like a bubble keeps growing, a balloon.
But don't we even have a current position that's not even filled? So we're really talking about adding two.
We are missing. We do have a vacancy right now, which means that we're paying overtime to individuals to fill the work that vacancy requires.
So if we have another
So
person
that's just
joining,
another
why
thing.
would we need a third? I mean, I guess I thought Bill's arguments made a lot of sense when I was listening to it.
You listened to Bill's arguments, so did I, and the Board of Selectmen voted 2-1 to support this position. A couple other things I just wanted to mention. I think, again, hiring an additional person dedicated to Stafford in lieu of the demand for services and the fact that it's a fully paid for position, $150,000 a year, subject to a 7% increase every July 1, is a pretty solid thing to do when you're trying to provide services to this town. And that would, and number one, it would free up paramedics' time for Summers, which has been raised as an issue by Summers residents, as to, hey, what if I have a heart attack and the vehicle I need to support me is in Stafford? I'd have to wait until somebody came from Enfield or Ellington or East Windsor. So that would address that. And by the way, it only happens, I think, 5 or 6 times a year. So it's not like it's a big deal, but it could become bigger with the increase in demand for services, because we can't control that. And again, it would also, I know there was discussion about Chief Roach being one of the paramedics, and the problem is he works somewhere around 100 hours every 2 weeks, and he goes out on paramedic calls, and here he is the chief of the department, but you run the department, and I'm not sure how much of his time is spent on calls, but it's significant. And this would relieve him of the need to run out when the buzzer rings, in place of running his department. And I know there's the issue of, what about layoff costs? There could be layoff costs if the person, in other words, if there was another source for this person, for this ALS person, if Stafford, for instance, was given authorization to have the what is it, R5, the license, ALS license, or if it was given to Trinity Healthcare, that would obviate the need for this person. And the question is, what do you do with that person? And we believe that, number one, the person could be laid off within the 60-day period, which is given in the agreement, where Stafford will pay, once they give notice of terminated contract, they'll pay an additional 60 days for the individual, and our town administration office believes the person will be gone within 60 days. So in other words, the person, if we didn't have a need for that person within our own organization, if there's an extra person you just didn't need because ALS was provided by some other entity, whether it be Stafford Ambulance or Trinity Healthcare. And if that were the case, there would be some layoff costs that could be required of the town. But if at the same time we had a vacancy within our own paramedic alignment of personnel, like we do right now, that person could slip right in and fill that position. So, and by the way, these paramedics are hard to find, and it takes a while to find them. So, putting off supporting the appropriation would only delay the ability to bring someone on board. So, that's just, I'm sure you know that, but and also, of course, the eventual approval for this position is going to be at a town meeting.
I think the arrangement's pretty well thought out, and I don't have a problem with the expenditure per se. But since there have been issues about, I don't know if issues or a misunderstanding or discussion about the how the financing and the setup has gone so far, and since a report has been prepared, I'd like to see the report before I make that vote.
Yeah. I just have a couple of questions about the contract. And I agree with Ralph, and I agree with Bruce that we'd like to see the numbers. And I think that's really important, that we have an opportunity, that the Board of Finance have an opportunity to vet those numbers.
Yeah.
And perhaps talk to people who may have an interest in it, like, for example, you, Tim, and Bill. If that means having another meeting, or one of my questions is, what kind of a timeline are we on this? is this something that we can address at our next regular scheduled meeting? Do we need to have an interim
I think it would be
meeting?
helpful to have a special meeting
Would it-
once you were given this report.
Would it be helpful to have a meeting of the Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen at the same time?
We could do that.
Or, I mean, it's up to you, but I offer that as a suggestion.
Could all have to be structured in such a way that the Board of Finance could take a vote as well. Yeah.
Yeah, there'd be
Yeah,
two
well,
different agendas.
ultimately,
I mean, if they wanted to do it that night, I just thought
I
it'd be
think-
good to set it up so that there'd be that possibility.
I think with Thanksgiving coming, I would say we should look at trying to talk about this in December, before Christmas,
Yeah.
like maybe early
I
December.
think we can talk about
The problem is, again, if you're trying to find somebody to have
Yeah.
on board by January 1,
Yeah.
But I just don't see
it
the
makes
need.
it impossible. Just
I
by
think
the
we're putting the
schedule
cart before
alone.
the horse, because we still have a position that's not even filled. I don't understand why we need to jump to creating a new one.
Because the position that's not being filled is being filled by hours of paramedics we have on board who are putting in extra
Wouldn't you stress them
overtime,
less?
and it's costing the town additional money.
Correct. So fill that position, and then we have less overtime,
Well, we're
and
trying
then we
to-
have more bodies
Yeah.
to cover all the excess. To me, it seems like we're putting the cart before the horse before we even know if there's a need. I don't think
Well,
anybody
again,
refuted anything Bill said last week, so I'm very
Well, I
disinclined.
think you got to be a little bit concerned about micromanaging what the fire chief does as the manager of the fire department. So I think that's
But we
that
also
should
have to be careful
because
about
we are not-
taxpayer dollars, 'cause
We
we
are
didn't-
not the experts here
No.
of what the needs are.
But
I
Bill
hope-
is. Bill actually understands this
Well,
stuff. That's the difference. He's run these programs before, so he actually does know the numbers. He knows the bodies. So I give what Bill says a lot of credence because he actually knows what he's talking about
Okay,
in this
we'll
arena.
count your
I
vote
think
in
the chief
support of
does
Bill.
too, but I
That's-
still want to
we
see
can-
It's not in support of Bill. It's in support of what makes sense. It's not Team Bill.
Hey.
It's about what makes sense for our town and our taxpayers.
I agree. It's what makes sense,
I think,
obviously.
well, first step, we need to see the report.
I'd
the
like to see
assessments.
that.
I'd like to see the numbers. I'd like
Yeah.
to have an opportunity to review
100%.
them.
Totally agree, Mike.
I'd like to see the report for expenses and then projected if it's more than that. We'd have to see it all. I think that's the way we look at it.
I'd be perfectly willing to attend a special meeting somewhere between the election and Thanksgiving. I don't think we have to wait till December.
Okay, well, let's say we do this. Once we get the report
That'd be nice.
and the members of the Board of Finance have it in hand, then
To
we
read it
can
through.
set a special meeting up, perhaps in conjunction with the Board of Selectmen. Maybe we do it alone, whatever, all right?
Mhm.
And
It could be our meeting with the Board of Selectmen in attendance to answer all questions. Either way.
Yeah.
okay. I just had a question or two. And I don't know anything about this other than what I've read and talked to a few folks about, but is it true that the Stafford folks are continuing to try to find an alternative solution to this problem?
They are. They filed for the ALS license.
Okay.
That was like 3 months ago.
Okay.
Have they paid Summers for?
The Stafford folks meet. It's Stafford. It's Stafford Ambulance is the applicant. And Stafford, there's a Stafford Ambulance is a private organization. So the Board of Selectmen is much less involved with what they do. They just write them a check at the end of every.
But in
This way
Stafford,
here.
they're actively trying to find another solution to the problem other than having Summers provide
They are
the
absolutely.
service.
Yeah, that started 3 months ago.
Does that trouble you at all that we get involved in this whole process and they just say, well, here's our 60-day notice, we're out?
Why would that trouble me?
I don't know, we've allocated resources, we've
Yeah,
appropriated
but
money, we've hired somebody to do something,
Right.
and then while all along we kind of know that they're looking for another solution.
We do. But we've got a 60-day period in the agreement where they would continue to pay for the services for that
I
additional
understand you
person.
said that, Tim. I just, my wicked lawyer mind says, boy, that's not very long.
Yeah.
We've put ourselves in financial jeopardy, and they've got $24,000, I think, to buy out of it, right?
25.
Thank you.
Yep.
Just seems like a short time. I would have thought, we'll do this. I mean, if we were going to do this, I would be thinking in terms of, well, we'll do it as long as you sign a year contract, and you've got to give us notice, 90 days before the year's over.
Extended from 60 to 90 days, what you're
Well,
saying.
no, but I mean, the contract should be a longer period of time without them having an opportunity to just pull the pin at some point.
Well, it's an
I think.
open-ended contract, isn't it, to start out, but with the escape clause?
There's a lot of ways you can do it. There are a lot of ways you could negotiate it. I'm not trying to take your thunder in terms of negotiation. I'm just
Well,
saying,
clearly, it's more than a one-year contract because they've already got the 7% built in for the following fiscal years. So,
But it's
Well,
not,
six
not with a
months,
60-day
but they can-
escape patch.
well, I mean,
not with
yeah.
a 60-day.
With an escape patch, it renders it meaningless.
Well, we don't believe that Stafford's going to be ready to accommodate the ALS services for probably about a 2-year period.
I see.
And then there's a question about whether Trinity can come in and they have not applied for this license.
Well, I've said my piece. I think it's your job to negotiate the contract, not mine. It just seems to me a little bit like we're ramping up to do something for Stafford and could find ourselves stuck here with 60 days notice if they decide to do something else.
Okay.
Will we get to see a financial report at the next meeting?
I mean, I can send it out to you guys whenever. It's like I said, in my opinion, it's completed. I can talk with Mike tomorrow, and I guess
I think we could
get
either
his
possibly do it
blessing.
at the end of this week or beginning of next week.
Yeah, and as long as he's okay, sending it out, then I have no issues. I don't see anything else to add to it or change or.
And because I can't come here and read it and absorb it. If I have a
Right. No,
chance,
you would need some time to
Right.
absorb everything that's in this. It's very extensive. It took me a month, of probably 20 hours a week for a month of nothing but working on this.
I admire you for that.
So it's been a very long project, but it has a lot of data in it, has a lot of information, and then I kind of summarize it up in a 3-page written report of what it all means and what I think the facts are from it.
Any further comments about this matter at the moment? Okay. So we probably table any further consideration of the matter unless there's objection. Anybody object to the table
I
of
don't
the
object.
matter until such?
I don't object to the tabling. I'm wondering whether we should prospectively, acting on the assumption that we're going to receive a report within a few days, might want to schedule a special meeting at this time to help the selectmen as much as to get this project going.
My preference would be to schedule a meeting after we get the
Okay.
report. If
But
that's okay
that's
with
just
you.
the intent that I'm after, that's all.
And I think we can schedule a meeting easily by email.
So they shoot me an
Yeah.
email and
Yeah,
Sure,
sure. That
put an
works.
agenda together very quickly.
Okay,
Uh,
sounds fine.
That leaves the ball in their court to
Yep.
finalize and approve the report, right?
We'll do.
And
With that
hand
in
us
mind, I'll-
something that they've approved.
With that
Okay?
in mind, I'll make the motion to table.
Okay. And a second on the motion to table, anybody? Any further discussion? Hearing
I do
none?
have one question for Brian.
Yeah.
Brian, are we able, does your report show the revenue that's coming in from Stafford
Yes.
versus the costs of having a full-time employee and apportioning it?
Not versus the cost of a full-time employee. It shows actual data for fiscal 22, what was expended and what was collected in insurance collection revenue from Stafford.
Okay.
So it shows what that gap was.
So at the last meeting, Brian did say that the revenue was 17,000 or 12,000. 17. And actually, the figure that we came up with the next day was somewhere around 118.
Well, I'd be curious to see what the cost is
All right.
to offset the revenue.
All right.
Okay, I think we're done.
No, we haven't voted.
Yeah, we can.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition?
I do want to get that 2023 meeting schedule. I don't. Would you
I
just
thought it was-
email it?
It's in the email attachment that was sent to you.
It is in the email attachment, that's
Yeah.
for sure. And I made, like I said, I just photocopied these, and it was in my packet, so I don't know how I didn't end up on all the other
Right,
ones,
right,
unless
yeah.
it's stuck to the cover page.
Okay.
This is mine.
So I'll
No, it's not in here, but it was in the
I'll-
email attachment. that-
I'll
I have
email it
that
back
too.
out. I have just that slip, just that sheet. I'll
All
email
right.
it back out.
How about the minutes for September 27th?
Make a motion to approve.
Second. Is there any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries. I think, is there no other business unless you have something? Anybody else for the good of the order? No? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Can we do that without
Second.
$2 on it?
Yeah, all right. Very well.
So moved.